The champagne glass in my hand suddenly felt impossibly heavy. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the private hospitality suite, I could see the graduation stadium below, rows of red gowns glinting in afternoon sun. My phone screen glowed with my father's text, sent 40 minutes before the ceremony was scheduled to begin. "Talk to your mother. We've decided. No more handouts. Time you learn to support yourself. Don't expect help after today." I read it twice. Then a third time, searching for some hint of irony, some acknowledgement of the brutal timing. Nothing. Just the same dismissive certainty he'd wielded my entire life, delivered at the exact moment he assumed I'd feel most vulnerable. My vision tunneled on a single detail in the text. The phrase, "support yourself." While 20 floors below me, David finished his presentation to the IPO underwriters, the same presentation that had valued my company at $5.8 billion that morning. "My name is Nora. I'm 28, and I'm a neural network architect. This is the story of how I let my parents attend my coronation disguised as my graduation." The suite door opened behind me. David stepped in, phone pressed to his ear, then covered the receiver. "Nora, the pricing committee just confirmed. We're going to $6.2 billion. It's done." He paused, studying my expression. "You okay? You look pale." I held up my phone, showing him the text. His eyes widened as he read, then his jaw tightened. "He sent this today? Right before your ceremony?" "Apparently, punctuality runs in our family," I said, hearing my voice sound distant, detached. "He's always believed in teachable moments." David's expression shifted through several emotions before landing on something like recognition. "Your parents, they don't know about any of this, do they? The company, the IPO, any of it?" "No," I said simply. "They think I've been struggling through a PhD while working campus jobs. They have no idea I founded NeuroCore 4 years ago, that we have 200 employees, or that we just revolutionized medical diagnostics AI." He stared at me. "Nora, your father just told you to learn to support yourself. You're about to become one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country." "I know." I set down the champagne, untouched. Something crystallized in my chest. Not anger exactly, but a clear, cold certainty. "David, change of plans for the ceremony. I need you to do something for me." His eyes flickered with understanding. "What do you need?" I told him, and as I explained, I watched his expression transform from concern to something approaching awe. "You're sure about this?" he asked quietly. I looked down at my father's text again. 28 years of being told I wasn't practical enough, focused enough, realistic enough. 28 years of my work being dismissed as theoretical nonsense. 28 years of proving myself to people who'd decided long ago what I was capable of. "I've never been more sure of anything," I said. Growing up in a small California town where ambition was treated like a character flaw, I learned early to keep my world small and quiet. My parents ran a modest accounting firm, stable, predictable, unremarkable. They met clients who wanted tax returns filed, not lives transformed. When I tried explaining neural networks at 14, my father laughed and said I should focus on something normal people could understand. When I chose computer science over business administration, my mother cried, convinced I was choosing poverty. They weren't cruel, they were terrified. Terrified that their daughter's dreams were too big, too impractical, too likely to end in devastating failure. So they tried to protect me the only way they knew how, by teaching me to expect less. I stopped sharing my work with them sophomore year of college, not dramatically, not with confrontation. I just quietly stopped mentioning the research assistantships, the graduate seminars I was sitting in on at 19, the machine learning models I built at night. When they asked what I was working on, I'd say homework or a class project. They'd nod, satisfied, believing I was safely ordinary. By the time I started NeuroCore at 24, I'd become an expert at living 2 completely separate lives. To my parents, I was their perpetual graduate student daughter, struggling but educational. To the rest of the world, I was the founder and CEO who'd just secured $40 million in Series B funding. I paid my own tuition, paid my own rent, even paid theirs sometimes through anonymous transfers I knew they'd never trace back to me. My father had no idea the property tax relief he'd received last year came from my company's charitable foundation. My mother didn't know the medical bill that mysteriously got adjusted after her surgery was because I'd quietly covered it. I didn't do it for recognition. I did it because despite everything, they were still my parents. And I kept hoping that someday, somehow, they'd actually see me. 20 minutes before the ceremony began, I left the hospitality suite and made my way down to the stadium floor. David had already headed down earlier to coordinate with our PR team and position himself strategically in the crowd. He'd pulled my father's contact information from the business card my dad had given me years ago when he was still trying to network me into sensible career paths. The graduation ceremony was already underway when I slipped into my seat in the doctoral candidate section. Jessica grabbed my arm immediately. "Where were you? You missed like 20 names." "Handling something," I said, scanning the crowd for my parents. I found them 12 rows back, my father checking his watch, my mother fussing with her purse. They looked exactly as they always did, vaguely uncomfortable at my academic events, counting down minutes until they could leave. My phone buzzed. "David, everything's in place. You ready for this?" I typed back. "No, do it anyway." What my parents didn't know was that I'd arranged for 3 things to happen during my graduation ceremony. First, the university's president would announce a major donation, the largest single gift in the institution's history. Second, my company's IPO results would go public at exactly the moment my name was called. And third, David would ensure both of those facts reached my parents before I walked across that stage. Sometimes revenge isn't about punishment. It's about presence, making absolutely certain someone can no longer ignore what they've refused to see. The first domino fell during the ceremony's recognition segment. The university president stepped forward, adjusting his microphone with barely contained excitement. "Before we proceed with conferring degrees, I have extraordinary news to share. Our institution has just received the largest single donation in our 150-year history." Scattered applause rippled through the stadium. My mother sat up straighter, always attentive to displays of wealth and status. "This transformative gift of $200 million comes from one of our own doctoral candidates, graduating today." His voice carried genuine wonder. Dr. Nora Reed, founder and CEO of NeuroCore Technologies, has established the Reed Foundation for Medical AI Research. Her generosity will fund breakthrough work in neural network applications for early disease detection. Silence, the kind of silence that precedes earthquakes. Then chaos, cameras swiveling, whispers exploding into exclamations, phones emerging from every pocket, my name rippling through the crowd like a shockwave. Jessica's head whipped toward me so fast I heard her neck crack. "Nora! What?" I kept my eyes forward, watching the president continue. "Dr. Reed's company went public this morning, reaching a valuation that makes her one of the youngest self-made billionaires in American history. We are profoundly honored that she chose to invest in our community." That's when I finally turned to look at my parents. My father had gone absolutely rigid, face drained of color. My mother's mouth hung open, purse sliding forgotten from her lap. I watched them trying to process what they'd just heard, saw the exact moment my father's eyes found me in my seat, saw the calculation crashing through his brain, their struggling daughter, billionaire. Those 2 words refusing to occupy the same universe. David had positioned himself 3 rows behind them. He caught my eye and held up his phone, showing me the text he'd just sent to my father's number, the one my father gave to important people. It contained a single link to NeuroCore's IPO announcement with a note. "Thought you should know before the press arrives. David Chen, CFO, NeuroCore Technologies." I watched my father's phone light up in his hand, watched him open the message, watched his face transform through a sequence of expressions I'd never seen before. Confusion, disbelief, recognition, and finally something that looked almost like fear. The second domino fell 60 seconds later. "And now," the president announced, "it is my distinct pleasure to call Dr. Nora Reed to receive her doctoral degree in computer science." The applause that erupted wasn't polite ceremony applause. It was the sound of 5,000 people realizing they were witnessing something historic. People stood. Cameras flashed. Someone actually screamed my name. I rose slowly, smoothing my doctoral gown, and began the walk toward the stage. Every step felt surreal, not because of the recognition, but because of what I could see happening in my peripheral vision. My father had stood up, not to applaud, to stare. His phone was still in his hand, screen glowing with whatever articles about neurocore he was frantically pulling up. My mother clutched his arm, saying something I couldn't hear, her expression caught between pride and panic. When I reached the stage, the president shook my hand with genuine warmth. "Dr. Reed, your work is changing lives. Congratulations on all you've accomplished." "Thank you," I said, accepting my diploma, but my attention was on the stadium. The press had arrived. I timed this carefully. My company's head of PR had coordinated with major outlets to have reporters positioned around the ceremony. The moment my name was called, they moved. Cameras, microphones, the full machinery of media attention converging on my parents' section. "Excuse me, are you Dr. Reed's parents?" "How does it feel to watch your daughter become a billionaire?" "Did you know about her company?" Sir, can we get a statement?" I watched it unfold from the stage, diploma in hand. My father trying to navigate questions he didn't have answers to. My mother's careful social smile fracturing under confused inquiry. For the first time in my life, they were the ones who didn't understand, didn't have the narrative under control, didn't get to define reality. But I wasn't done. The final domino required me to walk back into the crowd, to meet them face to face, to have the conversation we should have had years ago. As I descended from the stage, security intercepted me. Not to protect me, but to coordinate my path through reporters. I found my parents in a bubble of chaos, cameras pressing in, questions overlapping. My father's jaw was set in that familiar way, the expression he wore when he was about to explain how the world really worked. But when he saw me approaching, something in his posture collapsed. "Nora," he said, and his voice cracked on my name. I stopped in front of them. Around us, cameras captured everything, microphones stretched forward, but I focused only on their faces. "I got your text," I said quietly. My mother flinched. "Sweetie, we didn't—" "You told me it was time I learned to support myself." I pulled out my phone, opening my banking app. "I wanted to show you something." I turned the screen toward them. The transaction history was immaculate. Every anonymous payment, every mysterious bill adjustment, every unexplained deposit they'd received over the past 4 years. My father's property taxes, my mother's medical bills, the new roof they thought their insurance had covered, all of it, traced back to accounts in my name. "I've been supporting you," I said simply, "for years. Because even though you never believed in what I was doing, you're still my parents. I just never told you because I knew you'd find a way to convince yourselves it didn't count." My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father stared at the phone like it was evidence of some impossible crime. "Nora," he whispered, I didn't. "I know you didn't." I lowered the phone. "That's the point, Dad. You never asked. Not once in 4 years of building this company did you ask what I was actually creating. You assumed I was struggling because that fit the story you'd decided about me." A reporter stepped closer. "Dr. Reed, your father's text, does that represent a difficult family relationship?" I could have destroyed him in that moment. Could have shared the text with its timestamp, let the world judge a father who told his daughter to fend for herself on her graduation day. The headline would have been devastating. Instead, I said, "My relationship with my parents is complicated, like most families, but I didn't build my company to prove them wrong. I built it because the work mattered." My father's eyes filled with something I'd never seen in them before. Tears. "Can we talk?" he asked hoarsely. "Privately?" I nodded, and security helped us navigate to a quieter corridor away from the ceremony. The 3 of us stood in filtered sunlight, graduation noise distant now, and for the first time, we had silence long enough for truth. "I'm sorry," my father said first, words tumbling out. "God, Nora, I'm so sorry. I thought I was protecting you. I thought ambition like yours would only end in heartbreak. My parents pushed me toward dreams I couldn't sustain, and when I failed, it destroyed me for years. I didn't want that for you." "So, you tried to make me smaller." I said softly, small enough that failing wouldn't hurt. He nodded, unable to speak. My mother reached for my hand. We didn't know how to support what we didn't understand, and instead of learning, we just dismissed you. That was wrong. That was incredibly wrong. I needed you to be proud of me before today, I said, feeling the words finally escape after decades of swallowing them. Not proud of my net worth or my press coverage. Proud of me for trying, for risking, for caring enough about my work to sacrifice for it. I needed that years ago. We are, my father said desperately. Nora, we are so proud of you. Not because you became successful, because you became exactly who you wanted to be, despite us telling you it was impossible. The words landed differently than I expected, not as validation I'd been waiting for, but as something I suddenly realized I no longer needed. I'd spent years trying to earn their pride, believing it was the missing piece that would finally make me feel complete. But standing there, doctorate in hand, company launched, life built entirely on my own terms, I understood that their pride wasn't the prize. My freedom from needing it was. I forgive you, I said, surprising myself with the truth of it, but things are different now. I'm not your struggling daughter anymore. I'm not your theoretical idea of who I should have been. I'm exactly who I built myself to be. And going forward, you need to see that person. Actually see her, not the safer version you wish existed. My father wiped his eyes. We will. I promise we will. Then let's start fresh, I said. No more assumptions, no more protected limitations, no more texts telling me to fend for myself when you don't even know what I've been fending through. My mother laughed through tears. Deal. Can we try again? Really try? I hugged them both, feeling the complicated weight of family, the hurt that doesn't disappear just because you achieve success, but also the hope that people can actually change when confronted with undeniable truth. When we walked back to the ceremony together, cameras captured it all. The doctoral candidate who became a billionaire, the parents learning to see their daughter clearly, the messy, beautiful reality of a family being rebuilt in public. After the ceremony concluded, I returned to the hospitality suite with David and my core team. I finally allowed myself to feel everything I'd held back. Not triumph, exactly. Something quieter, something like relief. You okay? David asked, handing me actual champagne this time. I think so, I said. I just spent 4 years building something extraordinary while my own parents thought I was failing. And today, for the first time, those two realities finally occupied the same space. That text your dad sent, Jessica said carefully. She'd found us in the suite after the ceremony ended, still processing everything she'd witnessed. That had to hurt. It did, I admitted. But maybe I needed it. Needed to see exactly how wrong their assumptions were. Needed proof that their understanding of me was built entirely on fiction. David raised his glass. To truth, even when it requires a stadium, an IPO, and impeccable timing. We toasted, and through the windows I could see the graduation ceremony continuing below. Thousands of students crossing that stage, thousands of families cheering, thousands of futures being launched with hope and uncertainty. I'd crossed that same stage with a different burden, not uncertainty about my future, but certainty that my past could finally be put to rest. My father had told me to learn to support myself. What he didn't realize was that I'd been doing exactly that since the day I understood his support came with conditions I couldn't meet. I'd learned to support myself so thoroughly that I'd built something capable of supporting hundreds of others, employees, patients whose lives our diagnostic AI would save, students whose education my foundation would fund. The revenge wasn't in the money, it was in the proof. Proof that his assumptions about what I was capable of were not just wrong, but catastrophically limited. Proof that the daughter he'd tried to make smaller had instead become larger than his imagination could hold. But more than that, it was in the choice I made afterward, not to destroy him with that proof, but to offer him a chance to rebuild his understanding, to start again with truth instead of protective fiction. Because real strength isn't just building an empire while people doubt you. It's having the power to crush those doubts publicly and choosing instead to extend an opportunity for them to evolve. That night, as I sat in my apartment reviewing the day's press coverage, my phone lit up with a message from my father, sent at 11:47 p.m. I read everything I could find about NeuroCore tonight. Your work is saving lives. I'm sorry it took public revelation for me to see what was always there. Tomorrow, if you're willing, I'd like you to explain your research to me. Really explain it. Not because I'll understand everything, but because I want to understand you. Love, Dad. I smiled, typing back. Tomorrow works, but Dad, bring a notebook. Neural networks are complicated. His response came immediately. I'll bring two. Over the following months, my parents and I rebuilt our relationship from the ground up. They came to NeuroCore's offices, met my team, attended board presentations they barely understood but listened to intently. My father started asking questions, real questions, not dismissive ones. My mother sent articles about AI breakthroughs with notes saying, "Thought of you." It wasn't perfect, and some days the old patterns threatened to resurface, but we'd made a commitment to honesty that we all worked to honor. Jessica and I strengthened our friendship too. She became one of my most trusted confidants, someone who'd witnessed my transformation and understood both versions of who I'd been. If you've ever been underestimated by the people who were supposed to believe in you first, if you've ever built something extraordinary while being told to settle for ordinary, if you've ever had to prove your worth to people who'd already decided you had none, this story is for you. Not as a blueprint for revenge, but as a reminder that the most powerful response to doubt isn't destruction. It's transformation. Your success doesn't require their permission. Your worth doesn't depend on their recognition. But offering them a chance to finally see you clearly, that's not weakness, that's power. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles, zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.